Hello, I am so excited to welcome you to my podcast, Against My Better Judgment, where we talk about mistakes we've made in the past, how we use them to our advantage to lead a happier, healthier life today, and how mental health intersects with these errors, perceived errors that we've made in our life. And I will be bringing up some personal stories into this podcast. I will also be having guests that can come and share their perspective. I will have people also writing in and sharing and asking questions that I can answer. And so I'm very excited for this new adventure that I'm going on. Why the name Against My Better Judgment? Well, essentially, it's because I think many of us in our lives have had situations where we have our intuition screaming at us when we're having to either make a decision or we're in a situation, and we get this felt sense that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be in this relationship. I need to change something. And a lot of times we unfortunately ignore it, which leads to suffering that's not necessary. So, Against My Better Judgment is about looking back at those critical forks in the road where we had the opportunity to listen to our good judgment. We didn't. Something happened in our lives that unraveled because of it, and we learned a lesson from it. Now, I am not religious, but I do have some spiritual beliefs that life unravels as it does, the way it's meant to. And I think that both things can coexist. We can look back and say, oh, that was a mistake. That was not a great decision I made. And simultaneously say, okay, but what was the lesson for me to learn in that? Because it clearly was supposed to happen that way for me to gain some kind of understanding or growth from the experience. And I truly believe that. I didn't used to all the time. I grew up thinking more that there was a right and a wrong choice every step of the way. And it was my responsibility to really think things through, overanalyze them, and figure out what the right or wrong choice was. And it took me years and years and years, and then becoming a therapist later and kind of healing my own journey and realizing that if I look at it that way, if I choose to look at it that way, then I will always suffer because of it. But if I choose to look at it that there's actually just a rhyme or reason for everything, and there is no right or wrong decision, there's just the decision that you made, then I don't have to suffer as much. It also just makes more sense to my psyche now. So again, I think that our intuition plays a huge part in what's appropriate for us to do, what's right for us, what's in alignment with who we are as a person. And I think our mind actually a lot of times just interferes with that. We overthink things. We have all these perceptions of what other people think we should be doing that come into the mix. Pressures, societal, cultural, familial. And then everything just kind of gets blurry. And that's what leads us down paths that make us feel misaligned. And in the beginning, it's maybe a little bit of emotional struggle, but long term, when we keep going this way and keep ignoring our signals, it actually leads to illness, physical illness, insomnia, burnout, all sorts of mental health symptoms. And so, part of what I want to keep bringing to the table here is paying attention to these signals, which are found in your body. And if we're only intellectualizing things and thinking them through and overanalyzing them, but missing the piece that has the intuition, that's what can lead us to a very disconnected life where our mind is over here, our body is over here, our spiritual piece is over here, and there's no integration and wholeness, which translates into a lack of peace. So I'll start with sharing maybe my career path and how it connects to this topic. When I was younger, I did really well in school. Anybody who's watching this podcast and went to school with me knows, like, I was top of my class. I had amazing grades. I did really well in math and sciences, did a bunch of contests. And so, very early on, I was sort of told that my narrative and my future was that I was going to be this big, bright star. And my parents wanted me to be a doctor. And there was a path, like, sort of laid out for me. When it came time to choose what I wanted to do, I was kind of not forced, but my parents had a lot of power over my choices. And I ended up, studying sciences, going to a really competitive school, Marianopolis, for those who know what that is. And then when it came time to go to university, I just started to have my body started to send me signals. I mean, throughout CEGEP, I was mentally crashing out. I did not get any mental health support, but my body was clearly demonstrating to me like that this type of high pressure science world and competitiveness with going to medical school was just not what I wanted to do. I didn't understand it at the time, but it just didn't align with what I wanted at all. But I didn't know anything better. So I followed along. I did have a moment where I was 19 where there was a fork in the road and I got accepted into pharmacy school, which, according to my mom, rest in peace, was the best thing ever. And I should absolutely accept pharmacy school because that would be the best stepping stone to get into medical school. That sounds gross and not exciting in my body. That's what I felt. But on paper, people were like, congratulations. That's amazing that you got in without having to do your undergrad first. You had to have really good grades to accomplish that. But I was just not excited at all. And that summer, I think, was a critical summer for me where I wanted to, what we call in therapy, individuate, which means become a separate person than your parents and your family. And for some people, it happens progressively and slowly because they're in an environment that fosters it. For me, it happened abruptly because I was just fed up and I was like, I need to get out of this environment. Unconsciously didn't know, but I just needed to go away from the environment so I could figure out who I am and what I want to do. At the time, it was forensic sciences that drew me. It was a program because, again, still, it felt like one step forward because it was something different than what my family wanted me to do. But it was still me being in that area because I was trying to capitalize on what I was good at and what my family thought I was good at and what people thought I should do, which is sciences. So I did move to Toronto, got into this program, which was hard to get into, was very excited and nervous, but it was literally felt like I needed to do this to survive. For my soul to survive, I needed to break this pattern and leave and go to Toronto and see what happens. Now, was that in my best interest to do it in such a abrupt way? Probably not, because, well, I had to distance myself socially from my friends, my family, everything I ever knew in Montreal. I had to pay my way through it because I was going against my parents' wishes and therefore didn't have their support. I was gonna be in a new environment with a lot of challenges that I ended up going through that deeply affected my mental health at the time. Yeah, just got involved with more drinking than I would have liked, started working as a bartender and as a server to get some easier money, and then just really white knuckled my way through my degree. I didn't like it either. It was a double major in biology and in forensic sciences. So I was like, shit. I came all the way here, did all of this, made all of this drama in my family, pissed off my parent, especially my mom, all for arriving here and realizing that I actually really don't like biology. I really appreciated the genetics piece and human biology piece, but when you do a major in biology, you're studying a bunch of crap that I was just not interested in. Plants, animals, insects, ecosystems, etc. Like I just wanted to study human biology. The thing is that I didn't like the program. I didn't even like being in Toronto, but I didn't want to look like a failure. And I wanted to finish what I said I was going to do. I was stubborn. I wanted to prove to my parents that even though they didn't support me and they said that I could never do it without their financial support, that it would be way too hard, that I would come crawling back home, that it was a mistake, I wanted to prove them wrong. So mentally, that's what was going on for me. And it was like, I don't care if I don't enjoy this process. I have to do this to prove them wrong. That was more important than anything. So that was part of my process. It is what it is. But at the time, I didn't realize, but I already started to really struggle with anxiety and depression. I just had no idea, no words to put on it. But there would be times where I could barely get out of bed, could barely go to class, could not focus on exams. There were multiple times where I went to the doctor to get a doctor's note to get out of midterms or finals. I was really, really, really struggling. I had a dear friend who she and I kind of supported each other throughout this whole journey and got ourselves to the finish line, but it was a struggle. And the thing is, if we go back in time now to when I was maybe 12, 13, 14, that's when I had discovered what psychology was. And I was obsessed and so interested in psychology. One of the things that I was exposed to that's absurd, but it still drew me in, was Dr. Phil, the show. There are so many problems with that man and that show, but let's put that aside for a minute. The point is, I really love hearing people's stories on the show, having problems be discussed openly on the show. That's just not something I grew up with in my Moroccan Jewish household. So I was like, oh, people actually sit down and talk to a professional about their problems. Like, amazing. So that's when I was, younger. So I kept saying to my parents, I want to study psychology. I want to study psychology. And that was just shut down. It was like, what? Why would you study psychology? That's not like a money making career. Absolutely not. Looking back, that was what I wanted to do. So I wish I would have done my undergrad in psychology. I absolutely would have gotten in and it would have been amazing. So fast forward to when I'm from 19 to 23-ish in Toronto studying biology and forensic science. You get some electives, right, during your undergrad. So I said, okay, let me grab a couple psychology classes. Psych 101. Oh my God, I loved it. Aced it. Do you think I missed one lecture? Didn't miss a single one. Was obsessed. That's your body telling you green, green light. We like this. We want this. Some other classes you go and you're dreading it. Red, red, flashing red. We don't like this, right? So I took a couple psychology classes, really, really enjoyed them. And then I graduated, made it to the finish line, got the degree, had the paper to prove to my parents that I made it. They came to my graduation. I was so proud. My mom said, I didn't think you could do it, but you did it. And that just meant a lot to me. It was like, yeah, like you don't get to determine what I'm going to do with my life, number one. Number two, don't tell me that I can't do something I set my mind to. So my inner grit was coming through. And number three, yes, I'm going to be the master of my life and my career moving forward. You either come on board and celebrate it with me or don't, but this is what I'm going to do. So it was like a big boundary setting for the first time in my life as a young adult. But then I graduated, worked in forensic sciences, dabbled in that universe, and still, like I said, I knew that that wasn't for me, but I thought I could make it work. So, still kind of ignoring the red flags. I'll spare you the details, but multiple years of I don't know what's going on, quitting my job, moving to California, thinking that living somewhere else is going to fix my problems and giving me the answers that I need. Having my anxiety and my depression struggles follow me there. Sunshine and palm trees didn't make it all go away. And fast forward multiple years of working in the wine industry, which also I was good at. I was working in marketing. I had a great rapport with my boss, if you watch this, and loved working there. Discovered a lot of things about me while working there in terms of just loving Excel spreadsheets and realizing I was super detail oriented, liking the creative process from the marketing side. Then I moved to the logistics side and I was managing containers of wine coming from France that we were importing. So it was cool, but it only got me so far. After a few years there too, I was like, I'm not passionate about this. I don't get how everyone else here is so obsessed with this industry. Like, I like wine, I like knowing how wine is made. I like French wine, but I don't see myself doing this forever. So the psychology thing is still nagging at me this entire time, and I'm looking up grad schools and I'm trying to figure out how to get into grad schools, and life happened and I just wasn't pulling the trigger until my mom got sick. She got diagnosed with cancer when I was, how old was I? 25, 26. And that was a curveball. Like, whoops, like, what do you mean? Like, people can get cancer and die, right? I mean, I had lost my grandma, but I never had a close encounter with somebody dying, let alone my mom. So, of course, given the complicated relationship she and I had, and then the distance, because now I'm in California and she's in Montreal, and all of these different things, it went in my mental health that already had struggles before this. It was a couple of really hard years. And she ended up passing away in 2011 on November 11th, 2011, 11, which was kind of cool. Not cool that she died, but cool that the date she chose to die had so many ones in it. And before she died, I had a talk with her, and I talked to her about, like, Mom, it really upset me that you were not supportive of the careers I wanted to do. And I wish you would have been supportive. I wish you would have understood. All these different things. She apologized, which was really like healing for me. And I said to her, like, I want to do psychology. And we all somewhere want our parents' approval. We all know this. I was going to do it whether she approved it or not. But it was nice that she said, you know what? Like, at the end of her life, you do whatever makes you happy. That's all I care about. She passed away. I went back to California. And immediately, when you get that close to death and you see that life is really that short, and she kept saying, I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have done this more. I wish I would have done that more. So, how could you not pull the trigger? So, I did. I immediately enrolled in graduate school to become a therapist. At that point, I was, I think, 28. So look at all the years from the time I was 13, 14, or 12, 13, knowing that I want to do psychology, till 28. That's almost 16, 14 to 16 years over there of just struggling, feeling like I'm doing things that are not in alignment when I already knew what I wanted to do. I'm sure a lot of you who are listening in and watching can relate to what I'm saying. And maybe some of you are at that intersection where you're really fed up with whatever path you've chosen and you want to make a different choice, but you're too afraid to do it. I mean, I don't know what to say. You need to do it. You need to do it. It's actually not just for the sake of doing what you love. It is literally for your mental and physical health to do things that are in alignment with who you are. And when I got to grad school, first day, first class, application, I was just like, oh my God, this feeling of finally being where you're meant to be. And was that easy? Absolutely not. I had to take out student loans. Again, I was in California. All this to say, I'm sitting here at 42 years old in my office, in my therapy office where I see clients, reflecting on all of this torture that I put myself through, which, in my defense, I mean, I don't think I could have done it any differently. Like, everything that I've just shared with you, I don't think I could have done it any differently than I did. I think that I did the best with what I could at the time. I think that I had an inner voice that was screaming at me and that I couldn't ignore, or I chose not to ignore. And I don't regret any of it. I mean, of course, it would have been easier if I would have just said, oh, I don't care what my parents say. I'm just going to do whatever I want and do this. But that just wasn't who I was at the time. That's not what was handed to me as a struggle. I was very shy. I did not have any assertiveness skills whatsoever. I was very fearful. And so that was part of the process for me. Like, it wasn't just about, like, what do you want to do with your life as a career, A, B, C, D, E, and you go do it. It was also about me and my personal growth that needed to happen in terms of evolving, figuring out who I am, learning how to assert myself, learning how to set boundaries, being kind of sloppy doing it and going from one extreme to another, and having to navigate and weave through these whole things, like, mentally, while struggling with anxiety, with depression, undiagnosed, unmedicated, unsupported, just white knuckling through it all, um, and getting to the point where I am today. But guess what? This is just like a small percentage of like my experience in life, but I have struggled a lot. I have gone through multiple challenges, and today it serves me. It serves me to show up as a therapist in front of my clients, have lived experience, have struggles in my background, in my DNA, so that I can listen to other people's struggles, even if they're completely different than mine, knowing that you can overcome them, you can get through them, you can grow from them, you can become more resilient because of them, and hold that space and that belief for my clients. And so again, it was hard. It didn't have to be that hard, but it served a purpose. So that's where I will end today. I think that if you're having these questions and asking yourself these questions about your career or anything else that you want to do in life, I really, really, really urge you to listen to your inner intuition and try not to do things against your better judgment, because you know inside really firmly what you're supposed to do, what you need to do. Maybe you don't know exactly what's the next step, but you know if you're in the wrong place. You know that you're getting red signals and that it's not working for you. So that's your starting point, admitting that this is not working for you. And then trying to find one small step at a time that you could do in another direction. So that's where I'll end. Thank you for coming to my first podcast, and I can't wait to share more with you in the future so that you can live your best life. Um, because that's what I wish for everyone. All right, toodaloo.